We are with the one and only, the notorious Ed Jones.
I always say that the knife and fork is the most powerful weapon we have. Oh, tell them they need drugs.
Yeah.
You know me well enough to know that I have an unusual attitude toward death, and that is that I don't really have a huge desire to live a long time, and I actually think I'm not going to live that much longer, and it doesn't bother me.
All right, guys, we have a very special jam session today. We are with the one and only, the notorious Ed Jones. I will tell you, I've been telling people in the office, telling our friends that, hey, Ed's gonna be coming, we're gonna be doing a jam session. Not one single person didn't make the reaction of like, oh, yes, I cannot wait to watch. He's rolling his eyes. He doesn't want to hear this, but we're very excited to have you here today. Thank you so much for coming.
And it is mutual. I have not been here in quite some time due to the life I lead, but it felt really wonderful, as always, to get a special treatment that you offered to me. Thank you.
Yeah, how was it after not being here for a while?
It is probably even better because I could feel it amazingly deep.
It's interesting. We're going to get into some stuff, but we've had a good handful of people that hadn't been in for a few years be coming back recently, and like something that I keep hearing, it's something along the lines of like, my body remembered what to do. My body remembered this process, and it was really nice to get back in that state of coherence. So I'm super glad you got to experience that. I actually think that we're going to do that for all of our guests that come like 30 minutes before, do a session, and then we'll have the jam session so we're in a balanced state. But guys, for those of you that maybe have been living under a rock for the last 40 years, Ed Jones is the owner and founder of Nutrition World. You started this in 1979, correct?
Correct.
About 45 years ago. He is the podcast host of the Holistic Navigator podcast. Been doing that for how many years now?
That one's about 8 or 9.
8 or 9, and almost weekly podcasts, correct?
Well, Vital Health Radio is 7 years.
Vital
That's
Health.
the weekly.
Got you. So an amazing human being giving a wealth of abundance and holistic health, holistic healing. You have those credentials, but you're also a father. You're a grandfather. You're a pilot, which maybe some people don't know. And I've been lucky enough to be able to get to know you over the last 5-6 years through professional at first, and then every once in a while me and you get to go have dinner and have a nice medium rare steak with some tequila and get to enjoy each other's conversations and get to know each other a little more. So you are also a very funny human being, which maybe some people don't know about you, and you're just a really awesome man. I just really appreciate and respect everything that you've done for us. So all that to be said, we have someone who is 68 years young.
In about 3 months.
3 months. So 67, 68 years young. And, you guys are watching the video. If you guys are, he's in pretty healthy shape, right? He's someone who has put in the work over the time. So today, I just really want to have a conversation from physical health, mental, emotional health, all the things that you do in Nutrition World, the supplementation. So there's probably not enough time in the day to talk about all the experience and all the things that you have to provide for people. But I got a kind of a outline of things I want to talk about, but also we can just kind of go where the conversation goes. But the thing I really wanted to start off with, so people that watch these jam sessions, 90% of them are people that are going through the integration process here at Rev. They're trying to get more depth of things, of learning about. They usually come in here for nervous system health. That's our focus, right? Balancing their biochemistry, balancing their nervous system, mental, emotional balance. And along the way, when we start going through health, we start looking at other aspects of health, right? Our metabolic health, our gut health, just the supplements we want to take, the foods we eat, and it can be very overwhelming, I would say, correct? I guess for the people that are starting the journey of health and looking at their intrinsic health and just really just going on a path of wanting to feel better, like someone walks into Nutrition World with your 45 years of experience. I know this is a loaded question, but where do people start?
It can be quite overwhelming, as you say. There's no doubt, because one is even before the internet, it was modestly overwhelming, and now you've got not hundreds but thousands of opinions on what is correct and what is not. And one thing I do say is I feel like the older I get, the more I value my intuition, actually more than my knowledge. I think we have to have knowledge, but knowledge turns into wisdom, and wisdom is partnering with intuition if you feel that you can connect with that. And so when I speak to somebody now, probably as you do, you've had enough years of great experience. you can kind of sense where they are. And I want to meet people where they are.
Mm.
If they come to nutritional world and they're, very overweight and that's what they want to do is just lose weight, well, I'm not going to talk to them too much about antioxidants and how do we slow aging, because I know what they need at that moment.
Mm.
But as you do in here, as that door is open for them in here, then other doors start opening for them if they continue with a disciplined path. So, but first, I always say one thing. I always say that the knife and fork is the most powerful
Mm.
weapon we have. That doesn't mean that it's 80%, but it's a big chunk of how we're going to age and how we'll be as you turn 68 years old.
Yeah.
And whether you're going to be, visiting doctors all the time and not sleeping well and hurting and which most people seem to do that these days.
Yeah.
So I honor the person walking in, and I really don't go up with an agenda,
Mhm.
but I always speak about the power of food, and then secondly could be the sleep, or it could be the supplements, or it could be the exercise, because all is the four legs of the stool.
Yeah, I mean, you said a lot there to dissect, and one thing that I get from it is that it's a really, this word has been thrown around so much over the last, decade, right? Holistic, right?
Mhm.
Holistic health. I think you were an innovator in holistic health 30, 40 years ago when it wasn't the catchword, it
I
wasn't the
don't think
phrase.
we even hardly had that word in 79.
Absolutely not. And even 9 years ago when we opened up, the work that we do in holistic healing from the
Mhm.
inside out and nervous system regulation, like that wasn't talked about. I always remember hearing something about like when if you're onto something, it always takes about 7 to 10 years before mainstream starts to
Yeah.
catch up to it. And I'm literally seeing that happen. Like, oh yeah, we've been talking about that for 7 to 10 years. But my point of it is that what I love about you and nutrition, I want to, promote nutrition world real quick because you literally guys are the people that if someone comes in there and they have anything outside of like what it is that we do with nervous system regulation
Mhm.
and obviously mindset mentality, and we can have conversations, but if there needs to be more of a conversation, we have a limited space and time for those conversations because of the, the work that we do hands on, but we want people to, be educated. That's why we're really big in the videos and the blogs. But when people go to you guys have an amazing team. You guys have just professionals there. And I don't mean like professional, just MDs and physicians that have all these letters after them. You have people that really do the research and really do the work. And like that's a testament to, I believe, you because you didn't go to medical school. You
Mm-mm.
didn't get a master's. I know you have a certificate, you have a degree in holistic health, correct?
Well, and I was a police officer and I got criminal justice
Yeah,
degrees.
you got that right, but you didn't have the background,
No.
right? And so it leads me to the fact of one, you guys do an amazing job of like meeting people where they're at, as you said, finding the right avenue, not just trying to push any supplement
Mm-mm.
on them, which I just absolutely love. But the thing that's coming up for me is like people start this journey and start this process, and you said it like knowledge over time turns into that empowerment, into that wisdom. How do people know like where and who to trust? Because we do live in a world with social media influencers. Like, what would be your suggestion to people when they want to start going down, whether it's gut health or whether it's nervous system health or
Mhm.
whether it's like, should I take these supplements? Like, what would you suggest to people in today in 2025 to like feel confident in the decisions and choices that they're making?
Well, it's a good question, because the other thing that I probably say the second most often is we have to create a team of people that are trusted companions on this journey to health.
Mm-hmm.
And one of those is finding the one person you trust and asking them, who do you rely on? And I mean, that's why Google reviews work, because people
Yeah.
tend to think those are, and they're pretty accurate, but they're not totally. But if I ask you, where is a great place to eat? Where is uh, I mean, they could ask me, where's a great hip surgeon? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I'm going to tell my story of what I have observed, one for myself, but also we have 400 people a day. I have been with tens of thousands of stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I've watched people through not months, but decades as they age, and I watch and I listen. If you ask me what I had for lunch yesterday, I probably might in 5 minutes recall what I ate, but I never forget a story,
Mm. It's so
especially when
true.
it comes to connecting the dots of how did this person do so well and why did this one not?
Mm.
And sometimes there'll always be a mystery on this. I've had those few people who did everything right and crashed at the end.
Yeah.
But generally, the odds are in our court if we can check the boxes and do it correctly. And we do it without being forced by either someone else or by our anxiety and depression. We do it because of our heartfelt lead to move forward in a place that I think we're blessed to have a human body.
Yeah.
And if you had a brand new automobile, you probably would take better care of it than you would if it was all beat up. So uh, I I want people to know they can create a team. We have 37 people at Nutrition World, and we have 17 practitioners. I don't always, I never know who I think somebody should go to at first, but after a little conversation,
Mhm.
I feel pretty confident. I can say with confidence, I think you need to go visit this person because we refer a lot. And, you know, you're in our inner core,
Mm.
that's for sure, and always have been for years and years. And not everybody's in our inner core. There's an inner and there's an outer core, and there's a core that doesn't involve, we don't recommend.
Yeah.
But those two cores is where I am located most of the time.
Mhm.
And I'm always available to people, despite the fact I work mostly 6 days a week and I love what I do and I get to go to work in the morning. I don't have to. But people can email me at nutritionworld@comcast.net with specific questions if they feel that that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I get reminded. Do you ever watch the movie Meet the Parents or Meet the Fockers?
I did
Yeah,
back when I watched
the inner
TV.
circle of trust, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because that's what I felt like. We're in the inner circle of trust. Don't mess that inner circle up. Yeah, yeah. Well, you said something interesting that sparked something within me. You know, the way I think of it, it's like you don't know. Someone comes in 99% of times, 99 out of 100 people, they can see the results by changing, adding, doing, making these modifications over time, right? We don't know exactly what's going to happen. That is one thing over, nearly a decade doing this. It doesn't madden me, but it makes me so curious. Like, man, why did Steve have such amazing results in a month, but then Tom or Stephanie, like, it's a little bit different, a little bit unique. Like, everyone's so unique and everyone is so dynamic. So to be able to observe, listen to people, which I feel like so many people don't do these days, that's a huge aspect in probably their healing. And I guess um, I'm wondering about the question for you. What do you think about this statement? I heard this a long time ago, and I think it's oversimplified, but it's also profound. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Health, we tend to completely overcomplicate. Health can actually be quite simple, but it's taking the steps and doing those simple things consistently. That's what really makes the long-term changes. Because again, we're going to get into some stuff like with all the influencers and all this stuff, there's so many different things, but like generally, do you believe like creating vitality and creating health, can it be simple for people? And how do people do that?
It can be simple. You know what? I fly airplanes. I've gotten to a point where landing a plane is pretty simple,
Hmm.
but it wasn't at first. We have to go through that confusing period of some self experimentation, some failures.
Yeah.
And then we get to a more of a pace of this seems to be the wise path for me. And at this point, I feel like I need to work on the knife and fork and exercise. And yes, a disciplined approach is absolutely necessary. Hope alone doesn't serve us very well as we age. You have to learn to execute. And that's another skill is having the discipline. But, you know, I still go back to creating those team members. And I talk all the time about you can find some team members on Instagram. You can find them on YouTube. Every single morning, I have 4 or 5 what I call my team members right now. Dr. Peter Attia is one of them. Dr. Saladino is one of them. I just found a new one, a dentist that was amazing for his information. Huberman, a lot of these people. But
Yeah.
that's every morning for an hour. I have to do this because it's not that the world's changing; it's that the world is learning more
Yeah.
if you focus on the right people. And I will, you know, we'll never know it all.
Yeah, you're 67 going on 68, and you have what we like to call a beginner's mentality, where everything that you learn, you watch, you research, you have this years of background, but you're also not afraid to be proven wrong. You're not afraid to
Yes.
pivot, which, I think over the last several years especially has been to the forefront of like, hey, we thought we knew one thing, but now it's a little bit different. And that's probably why people get so frustrated, right, as well. I do have a question though for you. You have this beginner's mindset, 67 years old. 45 years ago, you decided to quit the police force or leave the police force and start this business and this company. I don't know how often you share this story, but like, why did you do it? And like, what was that story to get you away from being a police officer and creating something that now is
Mhm.
one of the most amazing stores here in Chattanooga?
Well, I've always been a nutrition health passionate nut.
Hmm.
I started working out at Cosmopolitan's spa on Brandon Road when I was 14 because I weighed 119 pounds and my upper arm was 10 inches and a quarter because I still remember when they measured it.
Oh no.
I mean, my daughter's arm's bigger than that, and she's pretty fit.
Yeah.
And
Oh, that's
I
amazing.
just was sick and tired of being weak. You know, when you get old, you get sick and tired of being sick and tired. Well, at 14, I was sick and tired of being picked on and having no self-esteem. So the gym was my temple.
Hmm.
But with that, I realized very quickly that the food had to come along with that. I had to have enough protein, which is still one of the problems
Hmm.
with a lot of people. They don't eat enough protein. Uh, and so that started that second journey, part of my journey. But the real journey started when my dad had a Shackley salesman come to our house. It was just him and I. And I so remember I was probably 10 years old then, and she came in, and why he invited her, I have no clue, because he smoked cigarettes. He drank 14 cups of coffee a day with sugar in each one of them. He
Hmm.
never went to the gym and lived a pretty good life overall,
Hmm.
considering all the bad habits. But she lined up all these supplements, and she also talked about food.
Hmm.
And I was mesmerized by what she spoke about and picking up those bottles. And we would go to Morrison's cafeteria. People who lived here a long time know in Eastgate Mall there was a Morrison's, but the other end of Morrison's was Eckerd Drugstore. I wore that pharmacist out at 11
Just
years old,
ask him a
and
question.
12 and 13. What does this mean? What does this do? Why does this have this? How many milligrams? What does milligrams mean?
Hmm.
And it was just it was a passion,
Yeah,
never left.
I love
I
that.
was born to do this.
I love it. I mean, and that can apply to anyone that is embarking on their own health journey. One, be curious. Be curious to
Hmm.
continue learning and not judgmental. Be curious. Keep trying to figure out, what's going on. And then, like, the other piece is, why are you doing this? You're doing it. You were doing it for yourself because you had little
Hmm.
biceps and you
Hmm.
wanted to make
Hmm.
bigger biceps. Which, by the way, they're looking very nice today. I see you on TikTok working out all the time. But the one thing that me and Monica took on for our life is like be your own test subject. Like
Hmm.
you're doing this for you. For us, we have a health and wellness, business that we're trying to learn stuff to also share with other people. But we have gone vegetarian, we have gone carnivore, we've
Hmm.
tried all the supplementations, we've done all the kooky, wacky things out there. We've done coffee enemas,
Hmm.
infrared saunas, all the things that are biohacking and all that stuff because we wanted to see what it would do for us. And guess what? Some of those things work really well. Some of those things, like, maybe not for me, but other people had really great results. So what I'm getting from you is, you've been on a journey for a long time for self-discovery to kind of make yourself better, but also just like seeing what works and what doesn't work, and you've been able to pass that
Well, I
along.
call myself the self-appointed guinea pig of
Yeah,
Chattanooga
there you go.
because as crazy as stuff as you've done, multiply that 2 or 3 times. I mean, everything from drinking urine to stirring only the foods I ate would only stir counterclockwise because the yin and yang, because
Yeah,
Michio Kushi said, if you're going to live a healthy life, you have to stir your rice right.
yeah.
Traveled the whole United States, listened to every expert I could possibly find, and it just created an encyclopedia of my life.
I love that. Well, I've done a handful, yeah, 1 to 5% of what you've done. I cannot get myself to drink the urine. Someone in this office that works here has done that. I'll let
Okay.
her share that if she wants to, but I just can't get past it. But I've also heard that it does amazing things
Yeah,
as
it's not
well.
for me now. That was a long
It's
time
like
ago.
I will push the limits, and now I'm like, coffee enemas. I'll stay
Uh-huh.
there. That's my threshold. Well, awesome.
I mean, I'm taking, methylene blue, which is popular. The first time I started that years ago, I mean, my urine was blue. It was, it kind
Yeah.
of rocks your world a little bit. Great product, though, I think appropriately used.
Well, let me actually, that ties into the next part I wanted to go through. Like, again, 45 years of research knowledge, but there are a lot of, like, especially every year, there's always like new conversations that are
Mhm.
happening, new trends. I wrote down a few that I kind of want to do like a rapid fire of what you think about it, who you would recommend it for, what are some maybe cons with it as well, just to give some people
Mhm.
it's a little bit of information. Again, it's not everything. It's like 6, 7 things from either supplementation or like different topics that I know you're very well versed on. One of them is methylene blue.
Okay, cool.
I know it's about supporting the mitochondrial health,
Mhm.
but maybe not doing it all the time for long periods of time. That could lead to detrimental effects. Share a little bit about what you know about methylene blue, and then what some people that might benefit from using that.
Well, one thing is, and I tend to always get sidelined a little bit with my own thinking, is the third leading cause of death in this country is pharmaceutical drugs, properly written, properly taken.
Mm.
The fourth is mistakes done by medical professionals.
Mm.
That doesn't say that I don't go to doctors. It doesn't say I don't respect the work they put in. I think the system is what's more broke than the individual person. And so, with that, I always am trying to put together the least toxic tools in our toolbox when we need something. Because every walk-in clinic, if they go out of business, if they didn't have steroids and antibiotics and painkillers, that's the three things they give to everybody. You go in there, you're going to get one or all three of those. And most of those are not very healthy. They have a lot of side effects. Sometimes it's appropriate. We need them. Most times we don't. To give antibiotics without further testing and know that it's a bacterial infection instead of a viral infection is malpractice to me. I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to learn how to create toolboxes for myself and then share that with other people. Methylene blue was the first drug ever invented. 1876, I think, was the year it was
I
invented.
did not know that.
Found that it would do pretty damn well with malaria and cyanide poisoning. It's in the it's in the emergency room still for cyanide poisoning. The people I get reports back from, I'm hugely invested that methylene blue might be a solid alternative for chronic UTI people. I've never witnessed in 45 years of using botanicals and other things anything that worked quite as well as methylene blue.
Wow.
Now, saying that, there's about 1 person in a million who will have a very serious side effect. You can test for that. It's 1 in a million.
Yeah.
I don't know. Walking to my car is probably going to have more odds to get hit by a car than that. But for those who are very, 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 very caught up in everything, then that is the side effect number 1. Number 2 side effect, which I think I've experienced slightly, it does create more serotonin.
Okay.
If you are already on the upper edge of serotonin, you can become called serotonin syndrome, which actually makes you very anxious because you have too much, or you're on, antidepressants, SSRIs. And I also do IV ketamine, which does raise serotonin. I only do methylene 2 days every 2 weeks.
2 days every 2
because that research that it shows probably just, we don't know. I don't have time to wait to know. Okay, I have to risk against benefit in everything.
Yep.
The risk of methylene is this little. The benefit potentially could be this big for dementia and Alzheimer's. Why? I'm a gambler. I just came back from Vegas 2 weeks ago. I threw the crap table. I went crazy.
How'd you do?
I did $1,800.
Let's
Bought
go.
back. Yes, I was going to do $5,000, but it got down to $1,800.
Yeah, that's great.
So that
Gotta
kind
take your wins.
I'm that kind of guy. So I'm going to take the chance that methylene blue is going to reduce my chance of dementia and Alzheimer's.
I love that.
But we have to be a little cautious.
Yeah, I love the preface that you had too, and that's something that we talk about all the time. Like the medical route interventions, they are there for a reason. They're there to save people's life. Now we want to have the least amount of toxicity put into our system. So for us, me and Monica have really leaned away from really many outside in stuff because we believe we have this chemical cocktail factory inside of us. If we can line ourselves, we can actually create a lot of those amazing cocktails within our own system. And that's because that's what all these drugs have. They have receptors, correct, to activate within the system. And we have a lot of that within. But at the same time, there are things, if people have been so burdened through stress, physical, mental, emotional, chemical, this could be a kickstart for them. This could also be supportive during a UTI or to prevent dementia, other things like that. So I love the preface of that because I think a lot of people, hydroxychloroquine, a perfect example, right? Like during COVID, it was demonized, and that when you do something like that, more people want to research it, right? And so now everyone's like, oh, hydroxychloroquine for everything. Yeah, I think it could be supportive. Obviously, I think that you agree as well, but there's also alternative routes as well. So we do have to be mindful and be careful, which, your opinion on hydroxychloroquine, if someone is feeling the fluish or feeling COVID, what do you typically recommend? And I know you can't recommend.
I tend to lean more to ivermectin than hydroxychloroquine.
Yep.
But, and actually Tennessee is the only state that offers it across the counter at a drugstore.
Yep.
But you have to pick the drugstore, and I have the information if people want to do that. It makes me feel a little odd. Physically, when I take it, I get dizzy off of it. But if I had the flu tonight or tomorrow, I would throw a little ivermectin down my throat probably for a few days.
Yeah, and I just want to like draw attention to that. This is literally one of the most holistically minded human beings that I know, and you can't be so rigid. And this is for the people that like, no, I'm going to do everything natural and everything like that. And I 100% get it. And I know you 100% get it. But there are times and there are circumstances, there are situations that, hey, it's not going to necessarily, especially if you're in good health, it's not going to kill you, right? So to be able to utilize some of these things to be supportive with all the other holistic things, like I just respect your, I'm sure that's been a shift probably also as
Very
well
much. I
from
was
where you started.
very hardcore organic foods and supplements, and I will never ever see a hospital or a doctor or an infection. Well, that is BS
Hmm.
because we have a complex body. It is not perfect because we don't live in a perfect world. It does have amazing systems of help regeneration and helping it to fight pathogens, but sometimes we get overwhelmed. Hell, we get overwhelmed if you do too much in the gym and all of a sudden you've got either an injury or really bad soreness. Well, the body overwhelmed itself. Well, if it does that in the liver and it does that with pathogens, we might need a helping hand.
Yeah.
And, after my double hip replacement 2 years ago in April, it kind of all 3 years of extreme pain before that. And, I was down here.
Hmm.
You were helping me off the table most of the time and helped me on. It's just they were so worn out, there was no
Yeah.
way it could regenerate itself. And I'm also very afraid for people with sepsis because
Hmm.
once you get some of the more common infections can turn on us, and all of a sudden the body starts shutting down.
Yeah.
And nutrient therapy can be beneficial in an IV, but no one does it around here.
Hmm.
So, I just know there's a time and place for short runs
Hmm.
of drugs. I mean, I hired Dr. Kurt Daring, who's a clinical pharmacist. He works at Nutrition World now, 35 years of experience. He is so conservative that I'm almost like having to talk him into, no, tell them they need drugs
Yeah,
sometimes,
yeah, yeah. Yeah,
because
yeah.
he just loves the holistic view, and he does see also, of course, there's a place for those drugs, but
Mhm.
his mission is to help people get less of those drugs.
Yeah, I think in the grand scheme of things, I think I've learned too much about energy, vibration, frequency
Uh-huh.
when we can become in an alignment. Like there's a reason, and we can't necessarily explain it, how someone with stage 4 cancer over goes through a deep internal soulful meditation process, whatever it may look like, and a couple days to a couple weeks later, completely gone
Mhm.
from their scans. Cellularly, biologically, no doctor can explain how that works, right? So when we know that, when we know there's something bigger than us, we know where
Mhm.
quantumly something can go in and out from particle to wave formation and someone can completely heal in an instant, that it is possible in this physical world. We have thousands of those things put in
Mhm.
medical journals and studies, which every time that happens, it's unexplainable. It's a miracle. They can't necessarily say what it is. So knowing that, it's like I do believe that no one needs these things, but we live in a world where there's so much stimulus, so much stress,
Mhm.
and the vast majority of people aren't going to take that time to step away, go within, because
Exactly.
one, it's challenging, one, it's hard. Maybe they don't have the tools, so it's not their
Mhm.
fault. But I wanted to kind of preface it that way because I do believe that everyone doesn't need anything. I feel we have
Yeah.
everything within us, but those things can be there to support us
And
as
if
well.
one person did what you said and their cancer left, it's possible. Just one person, and we know there's tens of thousands
Mhm.
that that's happened to.
If it's possible for one, it's possible for all. A
Mhm.
saying that I heard many years ago, and Erica always talks to me about being Mr. Positive, and I hate that. That's my term that she shares with me. But I'm like, no, I do. It's not that I'm Mr. Positive. It's just I truly believe everyone has that potential within them because I've seen miracles happen. So no, I love this conversation. So, okay, now that we got that, let's go into a couple other things that I think have been out there. Monica really wanted me to ask you about the world of probiotics. You talked
Mhm.
about antibiotics. Yes, try and avoid that as often as possible. Probiotics, from what I understand, most of the probiotics out there are BS, right? Most of them don't provide exactly
Mhm.
what the gut health needs, and it's always shifting and changing. I'd love to hear your take on probiotics as well.
It's not that in at Nutrition World, we vet products to a point that's absolutely crazy. So the product has what it says. The problem is, and I half agree, that there's people who uh, very often say they I want a probiotic because I read about it and my gut's doing
Hmm.
this, and I say honestly I don't recommend it. And here's the reason: we're still in the infancy of the microbiome research. We don't know for sure what is absolutely needed and not needed. Now,
Hmm.
the microbiome controls the immune system and the brain chemicals. And that's why when you get a stomach bug, you usually get anxiety. You think it would be because you're worried. No, it's actually because it disturbs the brain chemistry. But number one, my most consistent theory of poor health is that 90% of us have leaky gut. Leaky gut is where the intestinal tract supposed to have a very closed system, but it has basically holes in it. And what's happening is food doesn't get properly broken down to the single molecule, so it leaks through these holes. And what we need is a tight junction. Well, guess what? A probiotic going through those holes, the body sees a probiotic as a pathogen. It's actually a actual type of germ almost.
Which creates another autoimmune kind of.
It creates a war. It can. And so when the body sees this foreign invader who's supposed to stay in the intestinal tract, but all of a sudden it's floating around in the bloodstream, or it's in the liver or someplace else, it doesn't know what to do with it. Furthering the imbalance of that body. Now, what do we do about that? Because I do take probiotics. One is there's a liquid called gut ion that if you drink 1 teaspoon, within 5 minutes, it shuts those holes. It only does it for 8 hours. It's not permanently fixing it. But over a period of a month, it allows the body to get rid of some of these big molecules. And if you keep doing it, then we work on how to actually fix leaky gut. I have a Amber who works for me. She's from Canada and just amazing with GI gut health. So we do what's called, it's a GI test, stool test. Blows away any test I've ever seen. And it can pick up a lot of the disturbances that keeps that leaky gut happening. So then we fix that, and then we start talking about the right probiotics.
Is that Zach Bush's product?
Zach Bush.
And what was the farmer's footprint, right? Because they take the stuff from the soil, right, and then they take the microbiome from there. They do regenerative farming. That's how they formulate that stuff. Correct? Is that
yes.
Close to that?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I love Zach, and so someone with autoimmune issues, someone with psoriasis, inflammation in the body that they can't quite understand, you would probably point them in the way and towards a gut test.
I would not point them toward a probiotic.
Not towards a probiotic,
That's right.
but towards leaky gut.
Healing the gut first, and then adding more later on. So it is a little backwards. And now, as far as probiotics, so here's the one thing I always say: if you're on an antibiotic, first off, you buy a probiotic, you're going to waste all your money because the antibiotic's killing it, but not the spore-based.
Okay.
A spore-based probiotic is in like a eggshell, and the probiotic doesn't kill it. And because we have this much side effect from a probiotic in the gut, and the worst side effect with leaky gut is going to be this, I want that spore probiotic to help protect against the fungal growth and the UTI that might come around and the other damage to the gut lining. So I do say, let's please do spore probiotic for at least 10 days.
Yeah. It's about 6, 7-ish years ago. I forgot what we were researching, but we learned about the leaky gut. And I didn't necessarily have any symptoms from it at all, but I had heard and researched that bone broth was really good about healing that. So for probably the last 7 years, probably about 2 to 3 days a week, almost every week, we get some grass-fed bones from Nutrition World. We make this bone broth, apple cider vinegar, garlic, and like that, I feel like I haven't had any gut issues because that's just part of our normal daily life. And again, that's just a thing, like you hear something, you try it, maybe you don't necessarily feel the effects from it, but you like got the research, like, no, this is good for me, and I'm just going to do this over the long term. And now it becomes a natural part of your life, which I feel like that's the wisdom, right? Like all the things you have in the toolbox, you didn't know it at first, but then it just becomes a part. Now you take how many supplements you take, and you just know that you need to take it every single day, and just part of your life more. So it makes it easier as you kind of learn new things.
But the reason also that you are different than most is, let's for 20 seconds talk about what causes leaky gut. Well, antibiotics cause it. Glyphosate in your food causes it. If you get more organic food, you're going to have less glyphosate. Chlorine in water, I will say that you don't drink much chlorine in water because you have a purification system. You don't do most of the things that cause that recurring leaky gut. And you did bone broth, which has collagen in it, which helps fix that. I'd rather see somebody do what you do than to take the gut ion, which just temporarily fixes it. But that makes them feel better quicker, and it's nothing wrong with doing humic soil.
It's the little bits of toxic load over days, weeks, months, and years lead to the degeneration of health. Little removals of those things and little additions, I think, are what balance that out as well. And that's how, that's what our message is. How amazing is the human body that it can do that? We're a new body every 4 to 7 years. So these little steps along the way, they're leading to that new body.
Well, my daughter always talks about, Katie, and which is such my theory too, that it's like a big cup or glass inside of us, as toxicity, and really and truly we don't feel the side effects until it reaches, after enough toxicity gets in, and then it runs over the cup. Well, this is where vaccines come into me.
Mm.
There's plenty of kids who have done ton of vaccines who doesn't seem to have a side effect.
Yeah.
Well, how about the kids who did? Maybe their toxic load was already near the top before
Mm.
they piled on these vaccines, and that is what shifted the whole system.
And the question is like, well, it's a baby. Like, how much toxic load could they have? Well, they were inside of their mother's belly for 9 months. What's the toxic load that they had? What's the environment around their house? That's also stuff that they're picking
Well,
up
they
as well.
tested the umbilical
Yeah.
cords of many women and found it. I think the number was at 150 was the average amount of different chemicals
Yeah.
in that umbilical cord.
It's always a tough conversation when those things come up, but it's a conversation that we need to have. And now, just based on the last couple of years, we're having more of
Yeah.
those conversations, where it always leads to shifts and changes in the positive
Mhm.
direction. There may be some turmoil along the way, but it's getting the conversation out there instead of, no, you're wrong or you're right.
Exactly.
Like, we just need to have the conversation. Another one I want to talk about, magnesium. That has obviously been a huge topic. I know there's some magnesium, not all magnesium is created equal. You did a video recently, I caught it, about how it affects the voltage gated ion channels with blue light, correct? Talk to me about magnesium, from sleep, from GI, from everything that you love about it.
Well, I do, because it has more functions in the body biochemically than any other nutrient that is found in nature or in nutrition world. 300, in fact. So when you're low on magnesium, you have 300 systems that are not optimally functioning. Just think if your car had 300 systems that were not optimal, you probably wouldn't even get it to work.
Mhm.
To make a blanket statement, is there a bad magnesium? There's not a bad one at all, but there are different types that do different things. Magnesium oxide won't help your health as much as all the other forms, because oxide stays in the gut and absorbs water.
Mm.
So why do we sell it? Because people who are chronically constipated need it desperately.
Mm.
It doesn't create addictions, and a drier poop doesn't come out very well. So we want more moisture in the stool. So magnesium oxide is fabulous, but I never want someone to just do that, because it's not getting to the heart. It's not getting to all the other systems of the
Mm.
body that need it. Calcium constricts things, magnesium relaxes. So it's the perfect partnership.
Mm.
And if you have too much of one or the other, then we're not creating that homeostatic balance that you and I both believe
Mhm.
in for long health. When you are exposed to EMFs, calcium becomes overreactive, and the vibratory nature of what calcium does within the structure of the body is it constricts, and we don't always want that. That can be damaging. Well,
Mhm.
EMFs, holding this phone up here, causes that in the brain and the body. Magnesium's one of the only few things that can help keep that calcium from going overboard with its structure,
Mm.
because its companion is magnesium. So we have to have it in today's world, if nothing else,
Yeah.
than EMFs. Now, I love the chelates, and I love the sporatates, and I love all the different forms. We have a couple brands that have like 4 to 6 forms in it. That's what I take every day, just 2 pills a day.
So like the blue, it's not Blue Bonnet, it's the one that we always get.
Bio is one of them.
So that's so those have multiple forms of the
Yes.
magnesium, not
Yes.
just the
Yes.
oxide one. Okay,
Yes.
gotcha. Okay, yeah, yeah. We call it night tea at our house,
Uh-huh.
or we have it nearly every night. Our kids have it before bed,
Mhm.
because we researched it a few years ago and how amazing it was for the human body. So it's part of our nighttime and evening routine. And I will tell you, we sleep really, really great, and we have great poops as well. Yeah.
Well, a lot of times we don't sleep because we are too constricted, whether
Mhm.
emotionally or physically. Now, the podcast you mentioned earlier, The Holistic Navigator, is my encyclopedia.
Mhm.
It's 104 episodes of. If you type in Google The Holistic Navigator with probably any health disorder, it will be a 30-minute video of me speaking my truth at the moment of
Mhm.
what I feel would be best choices to empower people. But the one on magnesium talks about exactly A to Z of why and how to do it.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, the holistic navigator. I love that you said it's like, what's going on now? Like, what am I into right now? Because it is always evolving. So you probably have things back there from 5 years ago that are still prevalent today.
Yeah, but as you know, you go back and you're like,
What
oh, I wish I could redo that one because this one little thing is not right.
Oh gosh, we had a video that went like somewhat viral. I was doing Zach Bush's nitric oxide dump.
Yeah.
That's probably got the most views on our YouTube page. And I think I said endothelial cells instead of epithelial cells. And some guy on it like, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Like, that's not what I'm like, I'm sorry, I messed up. But yeah, anyways. Okay. Another one I wanted to talk about was creatine. Creatine, I'm on X, Twitter, and I follow some people in health, and that's definitely coming up a lot, men especially, and then even women as well, for fat loss, weight loss, muscle growth, overall just for the body. What are your thoughts on creatine, and can we get it from natural sources? How do we know how much is enough? How much is too little?
The bullet points on it are, I've always been a fan of it, but I was conservative probably 15 years ago of, I'm just wondering what the future will hold.
Mm-hmm.
And we now, if there's ever been one superstar, it is creatine.
Mm.
Because now the military's researched it for sleep deprivation to
Yeah.
bring the brain back. My daughter Katie just yesterday was showing me research for pregnant women of how beneficial this creatine can be for the brain of the developing infant
Mm-hmm.
and for the health of the mother. We're only talking 5 grams a day. That's one tiny scoop. I don't know exactly, but if you had a pound of hamburger, organic hamburger, meat from the store, Nutrition World, or any place in town that sells really good meat, clean meat, it's probably 3 grams of creatine.
Okay, got you. That's what I was wondering.
So you can get it from that, but you're going to have to eat a pretty good amount
How
of
many-
meat to get 5 grams.
Yeah.
I see differences in the gym that are significant when I do it opposed to when I don't. I will be honest, I don't have a super sensitive intestinal tract, but there were 2 brands that I used that didn't look anything different than other brands, and it made me have such loose stools that it was not good at all. I gave up on it, and then one of my coaches, Adam, said, "No, try this other brand," and I've been on that for 2 or 3 years now without any problem at all.
Yeah, I just restarted utilizing it because it has been coming up in my field as well. And I feel like it's like weight's kind of falling off me. I'm feeling a little bit stronger in the gym. I can't necessarily say any changes. And actually, no, sleep has actually been better, but it's been a holistic thing that I've been doing. But I've been adding that back in there. And yeah, I have a burger and I'll have a half a pound of a burger,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, then that's like a pretty big burger. Most people aren't going to have a pound and a half, 2 pounds of burger every day. So to be able to supplement that, I think is vitally important. Testosterone levels and estrogen levels being balanced for both male and female. What is your advice for people that are needing to, maybe they have low testosterone, maybe it's a woman going, obviously going through perimenopause. Menopause is a different story, but like, what's your approach when someone is dealing with those hormonal issues?
Well, slightly different based on male or female.
Mhm.
First off, male, and part of it depends on quality of life. Here was my story for 35 years. We don't need hormones.
Mhm.
Nature put into us exactly what we need,
Mm.
and it's supposed to go down. Here's my take the last 10 to 12 years. What's your quality of life?
Mhm.
Based on hormones. Is libido important? What is your muscles doing? What is your endurance doing? What is your sense of well-being? What is all of those? And let's test it then. If you are saying yes to me that there's some issues, we have a lab that is there twice a week, Be Well Labs. You can walk in, get anything tested, and then Optimize You, which is a tenant of mine. Again, one of my team members that I trust, like I do you, they only specialize in bioidentical hormones. I trust them exclusively because a lot of these clinics are giving men too much because they want them to be super studs. But that doesn't last. You can't keep giving super high doses.
So what are they giving? What are they giving the super high doses different than what Optimize You, the bioidentical?
They
Explain the difference
are
in that.
conservative with the amount that they
Got it.
give.
And so it's still bioidentical hormones that they're getting from other people, but it's just high levels. Is what you're saying.
They're just, the others are just giving super high doses because they want to get people to go out and tell other people.
Yeah.
It's like a walking
Marketing.
billboard.
Yeah.
And that's not for long-term health. You
Yeah,
can't
yeah.
keep doing that. So testing is very important. Now, to just get a testosterone test is only half of the information. You got to have what we call free testosterone, and you have total. Total is what floats through the bloodstream, and free is what goes in the cell. You can have pretty good total, but if your free is way down, we have to do something about it.
Yeah.
There are some nutritional products that can up testosterone by 100 points. It's made by Life Seasons, and we've tested it. 100 to 150 points. So if a guy's on a 500 level, getting to 650 might be just enough, and we don't have to worry. If he's at 200, he's going to need replacement by some form or fashion. He just will.
So you think if someone's feeling the low energy, low libido, muscles are deteriorating, they're aging as a man, best to maybe get a test first,
Mhm.
go through some nutritional changes possibly, but then also that you recommend going through something like Optimize You and seeing if a little bit of extra
A
bioidentical
little bit.
hormones. Yeah.
Again, testing lifestyle and nutrition and then retesting to see where it went. If it's not where it is or life quality of life
Mhm.
isn't, then you make the next step.
Okay.
But now, the thing that's changed my view a whole lot is, again, everything I do goes back to risk against benefit. I had no idea, and neither did anybody until 10 years ago, is the metric that actually predicts your mortality. The number one thing is strength.
Mhm.
It's strength. It's not endurance in your lungs, it's strength. And then, secondly, is VO2 max, which is
Yeah.
lungs.
Yeah.
But having hand strength and gym strength, that is what makes you live longer and healthier and have a better quality. Well, guess what? You have a testosterone of 200, you can't do it because there's not enough of that nitrogen balance, which is what testosterone does. It
Mhm.
makes your muscles take protein
Mhm.
and rebuild themselves. At 200, you are like a 10-year-old. You
Yeah.
can't do it. So let's reverse engineer this and let's make the last 2 decades of your life
Mhm.
a whole lot better if we can balance these things.
Which is going to lead me into something I want to talk about longevity in a second. But I did watch your video on grip strength and leading to longer,
Okay,
living
yeah.
longer. And I was like, that day, I was like, all right, I'm going to grab these dumbbells. I'm just going to walk around the gym for like 5 minutes. And I couldn't last the whole time. And then also been doing more like VO2 max sprints, like
Good.
90-second sprints, trying to do that with, several times every, once a week or so. I'm doing that.
Good.
'Cause I
You
heard
only need once a week on that.
that's what and I heard that too. And it kind of leads me to the points like, again, bioidentical hormones,
Mhm.
supplementation. But you can do things, yes, with the fork and your knife, that's important, but also in the gym, which I know you're a huge advocate, right? Lifting heavy weights, that's going to help your muscle growth, going to help your bone mass, right? It's going to increase your testosterone. So,
It is.
yes, look into these outside in things, but always remember you can take action and choices as well by doing more things to support the increase of testosterone, the increase of fat loss, increase your metabolism. So I like talking about the outside stuff because I think it's important. But again, people can make it more simple by just
Mhm.
taking ownership. And they haven't been to the gym in a year. Like maybe start there. I mean, let's
That's right.
go there and do that as well. Okay. Anything else on testosterone you want to say?
The theory that it causes prostate cancer was so overblown. It's one of those
Mm,
many pieces of the medical dogma that we got stuck
mm,
into a pattern of talking. It should have been balanced about 20 years ago, and it wasn't.
mm.
Still isn't. A lot of people in the specialty fields of medicine, no, I don't want you on it because it raises the risk. If you have full-blown prostate cancer, you don't want to be on testosterone. It actually has been shown now to have so little side effects on that as long as you don't already have it.
It's just again that we talked about the beginner's mindset and being open, especially in that field when they hear one thing
Mhm.
from 15 years ago. It's really hard for those styles of people, some people in general, to shift that mindset.
Shift.
So it's like, yeah, you got to you got to be adaptive, and not only in life, but when it comes to these different things from
Mhm.
health. Because what was true to smoking 70 years ago, this is a great for you, right? This is something that you can do. My actually would nicotine pouches,
Mhm.
people taking the Zins and stuff like that. They're like, I'm not doing the tobacco, I'm not doing that, but they're still doing nicotine. Do you feel like there's going to be some effects of that down the road?
Well, again, I go back to risk as benefit. Nicotine used occasionally for long COVID
Hmm.
and for if I had to do a major speech and I had not slept the night
Mm,
before, it's valuable.
okay.
Now, how would I do it? I would do a 4 milligram lozenge.
Hmm.
Certainly wouldn't vape it. Vaping is horrendously horrible for the lungs. It causes popcorn lung. I did that. I did a thing on TikTok about popcorn lung. I have about 13 million
Mm.
views on TikTok.
Wow.
It was one of my more popular
Yeah.
ones. And a guy downtown, I was eating downtown at the Walden Club about a month ago, and the manager came up and said, "My young server has been vaping for years. He saw that TikTok of yours and he laid it down. He has not picked it up
Love
since.
that.
That if that one person did it, it was
Mhm.
worth my
Worth it.
video."
100%. 100%. Yeah. I do wonder about that. Anything that the mainstream pushes, even like magnesium and creatine, like I
Mhm.
always have this hesitancy. Like I always have this like, what are you trying to get me to do kind of thing? Just because we have been
Yeah.
so conditioned to like follow this rabbit hole and then later it is end up bad. So
Mhm.
anything like that where like so many people are doing the Zins and the nicotine pouches, I'm like, what's the long-term effect of
Well,
that?
the people who are doing it every 3 hours
Yeah.
are going to be devastated with
Yeah.
their health because you can't keep pushing the adrenal glands.
Hmm.
You can't keep using stimulants without if the donkey's plowing the field and he gets tired and you give him a drug or a whip, they're going to work harder for a while until they fall over.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to happen to the health of this country.
100%. So I know we have just several more minutes before you got to get out of here. There's a few more questions I want to ask, so I'm going to kind of rapid fire a little bit. Did a video and a blog recently for our community, talking about, there's definitely things that you can do to add to your life, but sometimes that's very overwhelming for people. Sometimes the easiest thing to get more energy, more vitality is to eliminate things, to get rid of some things and stop doing some bad habits. We talked about, toxic people around us, toxic foods, different stuff like that. From your perspective, what are a few easy things that people can just start removing from their life so that way they can start feeling a little bit more healthier?
Well, I hate to be too obnoxious about it, but I do believe, and I did a YouTube on this, I rated over the 10 alcohols that people drink. Wine and beer are so bad for you due to the glyphosates, due to the histamine release, due to all of the chemicals, due to the fact that it just isn't compatible to your body's health. And I have this tequila drink. I have a business card. We give it out at the store. If you make it the way I say, you will not get a hangover and you will not have any significant side effects. Is it healthy? No, it's not. All alcohol is not. But let me tell you what, I started doing a continuous glucose monitor 3 weeks ago because, again, I'm the guinea pig. I wanted to see what that daggum drink would do to me. Here's my blood sugar. Normally, here's my blood sugar after I drink tequila.
Nice.
Not a bump on the road. Guess what? Most alcohols are bumping it. This is where body fat inflammation. So that's one, is change your drink to either nothing or change it to my Portofino. Actually, in East Ridge, he actually named my drink Edward's Elixir, and it's on his menu.
I love that.
So
we got to go there.
yeah, I got to try that out. So that's one thing you eliminate. We have to work very diligently on sleep, and most of us as we age. And so eliminating things that might be causing your heart rate to be high. This Aura ring, which has been magical to help balance my REM and deep. You buy them at Best Buys, and this is my third ring because I just had them for so long. But it told me what supplements work and which ones don't for my sleep. But it also, I know that blue light after about 5 o'clock does decrease my REM and deep. It just does. So on my iPhone, there's a setting where you can take all that away. You just set the timer. If you don't have an iPhone or you have an Android, just get the blue block glasses. But looking at televisions and all those others are doing the same thing. I turn my router off at night. Number 3, the router is a cell phone tower. So when it's causing that calcium to be active within the brain, which you don't want, is damaging, then we can't live in a cave. We can't move to the Alps and get away from all this. So what do? We do the best we can do. I do what I call a sleep sanctuary. So 7 hours at night, you're going to start rebalancing some of this horrible out of balance that EMFs has caused me during the day. How do I do that? Phone's 5 feet away, always. And everything next to my bed is unplugged, because if it's plugged in, it's still doing EMFs. And then thirdly is the router turns off. Yeah. Do I miss Alexa? Yeah, I set my alarm some other way.
100%. And we leave our iPhones on airplane mode just outside, turn the volume really loud. Every night before I go to bed, we turn off the Wi-Fi, try to do it 30 minutes before. Sometimes I stay up a little later and do it right before bed. But
I do it right at bedtime.
Just the little things of what you can do. No, I love that. And again, super simple things, and we don't have to add a whole bunch of stuff. But, I think a lot of this conversation, the ethos of it is like taking care of yourself, ownership, little things here and there. It doesn't have to be overcomplicated, but as this hour we've been talking, there's a lot to cover within that as well. So longevity is coming up a lot in the world right now. Last time we went out to dinner, we talked about Brian Johnson, not the Brian Johnson we love and know at Nutrition World, the physician, but the other Brian Johnson who's really talking about never dying, right? And so a lot of people are talking about the cellular health, cellular metabolic age, and reversing aging. We've had some very interesting conversations when it comes to longevity and living a full life. Like, I would love to hear from you. I got a couple questions for you, but like, what's your thoughts on aging as you are 67, 68? Like, what have you learned, and like, why do you focus on longevity? And like, just any advice you have for people, whether they're 20 years old or 50 years old and they want to live a longer and more healthy life.
Well, you know me well enough to know that I have an unusual attitude toward death. And that is that I don't really have a huge desire to live a long time. And I actually think I'm not going to live that much longer. and it doesn't bother me. And one of the reasons I got to that point was I hurt so bad for 3.5 years with my hips that actually was not diagnosed that they could be fixed. I thought that part of my life would be over. I was soon to be in a wheelchair. I was walking with a cane all the time and walkers at night. And it was the greatest blessing in my life
Mm,
because it made me know how impermanent everything is
mm,
and how everything is on loan to me. And whether you agree to that or not,
mm,
it's on loan to you and me and you. We're carrying nothing with us. And graceful aging is really what I like.
mm,
And I don't have any problem with the fact that I have to go to the bathroom 4 times at night anymore. I've come to peace with loving this body as it's decaying. And I've heard for years about a sage who his whole life lived with the image of a sword above his head that was connected to spider webs, and it made him think, what is any moment. So he lived every moment to the best he could and
mm,
lived in the moment more
mm,
than he lived for tomorrow's moment. And when I think about the fact that everybody who died yesterday had plans for today, every single one of those people did.
mhm,
We need plans. That's how we pay our bills and we get places.
mhm.
But you and I sitting here, this is the only thing that's really happening right now. Nothing else except the world spinning in a circle. So that's work. That is work to be done. And I have had to put work into that philosophy in order to be more comfortable. I will say the IV ketamine has helped me a lot.
Yeah.
I've got about 90 sessions under my belt,
Mhm,
and I do lose my ego under those. And I actually did it first for my hip pain, but then I found out what
mm,
amazing other benefits it had, which is neuroplasticity,
mhm.
which is how to make the brain work optimally as we age. So I'm hopefully getting two benefits out of that.
Yeah, I think you said something two profound things. Presence gives you that presence of this
Mhm.
given moment right here, right now. We are not guaranteed tomorrow, and to come to that realization is, as you said, the work. Me and Mon and Erica and Lauren talk about it like going through a healing process. It's not just a flip of the switch. It's you can have these profound moments of
Mhm.
awareness and consciousness, but to really make that part of who you are, to create those new neuroplastic neural circuitries that this is who I am, it takes work. It takes time.
Mhm.
It takes going into a quiet space nearly every day, every couple of days to really center and feel into that.
Well, I like the fact you said that because solitude is the medicine for my soul. And
100%.
it doesn't happen very well because I'm so freaking busy, but then I make sure it happens, even if it's driving to the gym in the morning. That means not picking up my cell phone, not watching TV, not listening to music. Who is this in here? Let me talk to
Mhm.
him because he's talking to me, but I haven't been listening because I've been too busy doing other things.
Yeah, we get these little taps on the shoulder when we're not paying attention, and if we
Mhm.
don't listen to those taps on the shoulder, it becomes a frying pan over the head, and
That's
then we
right.
have some really debilitating things like, "Hey, God,
Mhm.
universe, I'm listening. I'm going to go in." And the other piece that you said was, I think about you said aging gracefully or graceful aging, right? We've used that term for a long
Mhm.
time. I'm in my 30s. You're in your 60s. You have a little bit more ownership and understanding of the aging process than I do, but we've seen it through people that have gone through this work. Even in the short time of being here 9 years, I can definitely see people that start this process later and start this process a little bit
Mhm.
earlier, moving from their 50s or 60s or 60s or 70s. I got showed a long time ago like an X and Y axis, where the X axis is our time of life, like as we
Mhm.
age, right? And the Y axis is our vitality or energy or health. And so as we age, typically most people, what happens? We start off in this upper top corner, and then as we age, it just slowly starts to get down. You see that through the years. People just
Mhm.
they don't have the energy, they don't have the sleep, they don't have the muscle strength. They're having all sorts of issues, and then just slowly they bottom out, and then they eventually die. Where if we do these things over our lifetime to support ourselves, aging gracefully, what that looks like is the people that are 7 years old running Ironman out
Mhm.
there, the 80, 90-year-old woman who's spending quality time in their garden or with their grandchildren, and they have appropriate vitality and
Mhm.
appropriate
Appropriate.
energy. And then at the end, and this may kind of seem a little grim, it's a fall off at
There
the
you
end,
go.
right? It's like, oh, my time here on earth is done. And so it's not this like slow deterioration. It's like this,
Mhm.
hey, I'm living my life. Yes, I'm not able to do what I was able to do when I was 20, now that I'm 70, but like my vitality is actually really there. And that's always been like a visual for me to like take care of myself in the
Mhm.
present moment. And most importantly, as you said, enjoy this moment that we have right now. I think having children, having a career, and having just life in general, it's really brought me to that point of like, this is the only moment that we have. And it's hard because we got a lot of outside stuff that tends to
Mhm.
pull us away.
Well, you you have perspective that, again, probably the minority of people do. And you know, the more I learn, and Ram Dass has been kind of one of my leading teachers of my life.
That's what I was going
Okay.
to last right there, baby.
And you know, he spoke for decades, and as he went into a wheelchair and as he had a stroke, I was with him for many years. And it's really, the ego is what has all the fear, and the soul has no fear. So it's, the work is returning to the source of our soul, and that may not function perfectly in the scheme of a normal traditional religion church theory, but it functions perfectly for me in my spirit. When I'm in ketamine, I really go in there to return to the source, because I can feel the source in ketamine probably closer than I can most of my other times. And that gives me such peace. And you know, I read this morning about Gene Hackman
Yeah.
and how the fear he had of aging. I did not realize that till I read it this morning. And he hated to go out in public the last many years because I look so old, he kept saying. And I don't want to be there. I don't want to be there.
Yeah.
You know, I look good right now for my age. Well, I'm not always going to be like this.
Damn right you do.
And I look pretty pathetic for about a year and a half when I couldn't get out of my car to get to the store. And I came to peace with the fact I'm still a good essence of a being, even if I'm walking with that cane.
Yeah.
I don't have to be a superstar.
No, you're perfect as you are, and in the constructs of religion or the constructs of spirituality, at the end of the day, there's something bigger than all of us. There's something living in every cell within our body. There's an intelligence that organizes this heart to pump blood through miles of blood vessels in our body, coordinating hundreds of trillions of chemical reactions every single day. It's a beautiful symphony inside of us, and so whatever you want to call that, it's also the same intelligence that coordinates the waters flowing down the earth or down mountaintops and into springs. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And you know, Ram Dass, spiritual teacher, he was probably a big aspect for that in you in your life. And I do know about him, you know, a little bit. Like he researched DMT, right, at Harvard, correct? He wanted to see the effects of LSD and consciousness, right? So he studied that for years. I think he went on many of journeys as well. But I think what I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong, at the end of it, he said LSD, mushrooms, all that stuff was a tool to allow people to like release the resistance, to connect to their inner soul, their inner calling, God, love, all the infinite within them. But I think at the end of his life, he was like, the actual truest form of pure consciousness is doing that without that external stimuli.
Well said. Well said. Because I don't think he did anything the last 12 to 15 years of his life. And it was a key to open a door. Now, a lot of people use those as an escape mechanism. And that is probably not going to get you very far, because there you're actually running away from the source instead of running toward it. Because it's kind of scary. I mean, you know, ketamine used in an IV is pretty potent stuff. And I lose my ego, and there's like a big rope sometimes attached to me, like one of the astronauts with the breathing, and I'm floating. And there's been sometimes that I did not believe I'd be coming back, and I had to come to peace with that. Because when I was the essence of the oneness, where could I go? Where am I going to go? I'm the essence of the oneness that we all feel the flavor of. And so, if this body drops to the floor, I'm still here.
Yeah.
You just don't see me.
And Ram Dass, Wayne Dyer, and both of them at their end of life, they had disease processes that took over them, right? These are two like amazing spiritual teachers, probably the most connected sages and people that understand that whole path and of connectedness. And you know, they still had those things going on, but like I remember, especially Wayne Dyer, like the peace that he had with death, the peace that this is the life that he has lived, and he had impacted so many people in his own self. There wasn't like that worry that most people have. They're living in that fear, like the time is over, which, you know, we talked about Brian Johnson, the guy that's on social media, all that stuff. Like that's the one thing that I get from him when he talks about never dying. He's afraid, right? And so like he's taking all these things to help make him younger and to feel, you know, metabolically as an 18-year-old. But man, with energetically, like you can see it on there's fear, and that's causing probably tons of cortisol that he's trying to mitigate the response. And if maybe Mark Sisson, who
Mhm.
also reminds me very much of you, similar age, jacked, awesome dude, the guy from Primal
Mhm.
Organics, the stuff that he makes. He was like, I think if he just went out and went for some surfing and maybe stopped taking some stuff, I think his
Yeah.
life would be just a little bit better. It wasn't like trying to beef on him. It was just more like, hey, we have this
Yeah.
life to live. Don't like feel like you have to not die. Let's focus on living.
I've had customers like Brian Johnson,
Hmm.
and they did not fare well as the years went on,
Hmm.
and it was really due to their own internal conversations, I do believe. Not by bragging, I'm not bragging, but
Yeah.
2 days ago, Brian Johnson posted his blood work, and here's what makes me such, I guess, a rascal, an interesting rascal. I take about 60 plus pills a day. No one needs to do that,
Hmm.
but you do need to take probably a dozen if you're past 40. There's no other way to get past that. So I'm taking not far off from what Brian Johnson's taking. I work out as hard as he does. I have great peace with my passings of most of the time. Will I panic if I fell on the floor? I might have a panic. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'd still want to hold on to this magical blood flow in body and
Hmm.
breath. But overall, I'm gonna be fine.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: my blood work's as good as his. It was the first time I've seen
Hmm.
all his blood work, and I see all my blood work, and I'm like, that's pretty damn cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty, because I can be okay with leaving tomorrow, and he's clutching with fingernails to the windowsill.
Yeah. It's
And it's sad. I'm saying it from a place of, you're putting all this effort in to maintain this
definitely.
and nothing to find peaceful journey and contentment within your life. And that is not uncommon.
100%. And that would be probably my last piece that I would share about you and what we want to share with people that are watching this video. Please take care of this physical body, because as far as we know, this is the only one we get, right? And so do the things that are going to support longevity and
Mhm.
health and physical and biochemical balance within the body. But don't forget to live. Don't forget to be around community. Don't forget to laugh. Don't forget
Yeah,
to
yeah.
go within and have some quiet time. And then after you're done having that quiet time, enjoy yourself.
One last thing I want to say, because
Yeah.
I know we're winding, and I made this statement about 12 years ago or 11. I got divorced, and I did something massive in my life. I mentally changed my middle name to Yes. And because my whole life before that was, would you like to go? No, not really. I don't want to
Mm,
do that. Well, how about would you like to take salsa lessons and learn to dance? No, no, no. How about flying an airplane? No, no. Well, as soon as I got divorced, every single
mhm,
request was a yes. I wanted to say no, but I made myself say
mhm,
yes. That has been a game changer for
mhm,
me. And then lastly, I've said this for years. I want to change the face of healthcare in this town.
mm,
We're going to open a clinic in 2 months that will be a type of walk-in concierge that will embrace integrative medicine, but have a physician assistant that will be able to check if you got strep throat, if you have
mhm,
infections. It'll be that kind of clinic, not just consultations. It'll actually be a clinic setting.
mhm.
We're going to do IVs, and we're going to have the kind of things that this town doesn't really have at this point. So my dream is continuing to flourish, and Katie will be carrying on after I'm gone. So I want to thank you for all your support over these 8 years, and we have not come and gone. We've stayed together,
Yeah.
even though I don't get down here that
Oh,
much. But you've been a blessing to this community. The amount of people, I always have confidence when someone, and I hate to use the word falling apart, but when they're really struggling, and I know there's some deep emotional disturbances as far as energetically.
yeah. Mhm,
I can't do anything about that. That's
yeah.
not my forte. They come to you.
Mhm.
I'm sending them down here. So just thank you for being part of my team.
Well, I love what you do. I love your awareness of who we are and what we're all about. And I'm lucky to have met you so many years ago. And I told this to Katie, like I probably like 6 months ago, Ed's daughter. She's a great baton hander offer to, right? You're in amazing hands. Like you don't have a daughter who doesn't care. You don't have
No.
a daughter who's not going to push and try different things. And I told her straight up like 6 months ago, I'm like, whenever your dad decides to end, which I think you're going to literally go to your grave, because I just think that you love it so much. And
I
that
do.
was one of my questions, like, like, why do you keep doing what you're doing? It's because you love it so
Hmm.
much and you're so passionate about
I
it. And
do.
like, I think life is all about consistent growth. And if we're not growing, we are dying. So I think you're going to continue to keep doing what you're doing. But with Katie, it's like excited for the next 30 years because like I see what you have done, and to wrap it up, what's possible for one is possible for all. So I see that for us and moving forward.
Great ending. Thank you so much.
Ed, man, I appreciate your time. It was a huge value to our community. If you guys have any questions, please put it into the comments. Please share, please like, please subscribe. And until next time, have a wonderful day.